So next question.
So that is actually, I have few married clients or in a long-term relationship who are now like a little bit not in their 20s, so the body doesn't look like Insta sexy. And so they had this thing when a man is, let's say, busy, or they feel that I am not good enough or something is wrong with me, that I don't look like I used to when we first got married, therefore we don't have as much sex. And it's always me. Or if it's him, he's an asshole, he doesn't like me. And it's really, really destructive. Mm-hmm. It's never, it doesn't feel like, what are we going through right now in a relationship? But that kind of like, I'm wrong or he's an asshole.
So I love
because we either are sexless, let's say we didn't have sex for 6 months, or it's just once a week and it's boring.
So I love that. So the question is, what do you do when you're in a relationship? Or how do you coach somebody who's in a relationship and they're not having sex, and the situation they're giving you is either there's something wrong with me or there's something wrong with them?
But very sharp. Very harsh.
In every situation.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I'll do in this situation is, again, I'll move it away from sex, I'll move it onto them, and I'll say, would you describe this person as your friend?
Yes.
And that's what they always say.
Yeah.
And then I'll say, okay, cool, so this is your friend. Would you say they're your best friend?
Yeah.
Right. And I'm like, okay, great. Would you ever describe one of your best friends as being evil or bad or horrible? And I'll take them down that route and they go, well, no. I'm like, interesting, because you just did. Mm-hmm. So now we have a problem here where you're not arguing with them, you're arguing with yourself. Mm-hmm. On one hand, you think they're your best friend. Mm-hmm. And on the other hand, they're this horrible person that doesn't give you anything that you want.
Because he used to love me so much when I was 20. I had that body, now I have this body, and it's...
I love it.
Because he is superficial. He should see me for who I am. My boobies are sagging, my blah, 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 right?
And they always say that, yeah. And then I look at them and I say, no, actually it's because you've got two minds on the same thing, you're arguing with yourself, and now you're not fun to be around. When you were younger, you were fun. And now you're really not, because you're arguing and you're being nasty and you're telling him off all the time, and no one wants to hang out with somebody that isn't fun. And so I would challenge you not to have sex with him, but to bring back fun. And I'd like you to focus on the next month of not once a week, not once a month, but every day being fun. I want you to every day tell him one of the good things you think about him. Every day, I want you to reach out to him and touch him. And every day, I want you to tell him that you want to enjoy his body, but you're not going to have sex, you just want to enjoy his body. And if that turns into sex, great. So actually, and this is something I do. So I've been with my partners for 8 years. And one of the things that we do is that when we lie down naked next to each other at night, we're allowed to play with each other's bodies without it meaning anything. You can just play with each other. And so I absolutely will be late at night, you know, my girlfriend's in her 30s, and she'll sit in between my legs, and she'll pull my clothes down and just sit there and play with my junk. And I'm like, I'll be on my phone or reading a book, and she's just down there messing around, and she's like, you know, she's just experimenting and playing. And sure enough, after a few minutes of that, I put the phone down or the book down. I'm like, hey. And she's like, hey. and then we end up having this very innocent, fun sex. And it's a wonderful dynamic, and we do this like almost every single night. Like that's one way that we'll start things. And that playfulness is what's missing.
But this one couple I have in mind, they were married, I think, 12 years, and they had sex maybe 10 times only in the first year. And even though he's much younger than her, she said, I'm married to my father. And there is no way to bring, for them, there is no way to bring playfulness. They're not playful people. I am very. Yes. I coach my clients to be playful and silly and childlike, but no, she is very sincere, you know, classical pianists and, you know, very sincere life, and he is a director of big corporation, and their life is
so in
no
that
fun.
Situation, when somebody's like that, I'll say to them, okay, it's absolutely fine for you to not do anything together right now, but I'd like you guys to talk about sex, and I'd like you to do a number of things. And I'll put them on a mission to, one, watch porn together, even if nothing happens. but they have to put porn
Christian
on in the background.
beliefs would fall all over the place.
Absolutely. So actually, and if they don't like watching it, I'll get them to read erotica. And there are some lovely like sexual romance novels. And I'll be like, when was the last time you sat and read together? Like how classic to lie in bed and read, but you're going to read, you know, erotic stories. And there are some lovely ones that are worded very well that still inspire that chemistry. You know, I'm thinking of some like The Story of O is a great one. It's written very well. It was the inspiration behind 50 Shades of Grey. You know, I think that that's a great kind of story for somebody to read, to learn about this artistic world that also is through the eyes of a kinky sexual lifestyle. And what I love about that is it will challenge them to look at a different form of art together, to look at nudity, to look at what this means. And that connection can be classically beautiful. I remember in London, we used to have this coffee shop, and it was called Coffee, Cake and Kink. And it was the best coffee shop ever. It was this beautifully classy coffee shop. They had gourmet coffee from around the world. They had freshly made cakes, and they had ice cream in the shape of breasts, which was just, and it was really good ice cream, by the way. They made it themselves. And, but it was all very clean and classic. But on every counter was books of art of bondage, but it was classical. It wasn't sleazy. It was very beautiful artistic shots. And the whole point is you sit here and you enjoy some coffee, you enjoy some cake, and you look at books of bondage. And the kind of people you'd see there were all lawyers, classical pianists, these like very, and they'd be like, oh, good to see you, let's have some coffee. And then meanwhile, naked, and then it'll be like not really looking, and it's like, why are you in here? We all know, like everyone wants to look at the books. But it was a great way to go about doing things. And subtle things that they can do in their house, like adding a book of erotic art to their coffee table, adding these inspirational pieces, adding photography.
But wouldn't that trigger that idea that my body doesn't look like it used to?
So,
because the body on the woman in the picture is probably she's in her 20s and her boobies are perky.
And this is something that I think is really important. In this particular situation, we're dealing with a couple that when they first got together, they only had sex 10 times in a year. Their problem isn't about their bodies. Their problem is about the fact that they have an intimacy issue and they need to be inspired. They need to see the stimulation to start waking it up in them and experience it together. They need to find that because they've had years of sexless time together, and that needs to come back. And the truth is, that man is probably cheating on her. If not physically, then emotionally, at least to himself, because the average guy's testosterone count is nuts. Like, I love this when I work with, and even most dating professionals.
Wait, I had a client, he was 27. He could not get it up. He had no desire. And he was straight.
So there are exceptions. There are absolute exceptions. But just to show it to you, like the average woman has a testosterone count of between 25 to 50. The average male between 1,000 and 2,500.
And when they age, isn't it?
It drops by like to 900. It's
Ouch.
still, In fact, if a male drops below 500, it's a concern of cause of death. Like, and a woman is 50. 10 times higher, and the guy has serious health concerns. Like, male testosterone is insane compared to a woman's. And that is linked to the sex drive. A woman will experience during ovulation a small spike in testosterone of like 5 points.
Yeah, the old horny.
Which is, right. But that's from like maybe 30 to 35, right? And the guy, if he's at 500, there's a problem, right? Like, so women, like I'll say to women all the time, I want you to imagine you're at your horniest. And they're like, right. I'm like, great. That's at a 50 maybe. He's at 500 or 1,000 or 2,000 all the time.
It happens often. I hear with married couples, it happens like, I'm the one who initiates. He doesn't. We are in routine, like your father.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like it seems like we already know each other's bodies. There is nothing new to find out. Could a guy with a remain high testosterone and not have sex and not cheat?
So this is what I know.
Because if your father has a high testosterone still.
No, my father doesn't. That's why he's not interested.
You said he's been doing this for 30 years.
Yeah, just like on
since
his own.
He was 50.
Yeah, he's just been on his own and living life. But I mean, my dad was still having sex. He just not with women. Like he was going out and like paying for it. But like he wasn't like dating anyone. But the point is. When you're dealing with this with guys, I think women don't realize men are going to have sex. They're going to either satisfy themselves or they're going to go and find somebody else. That's just going to happen. If the woman isn't providing it There are absolute exceptions where there is probably a guy that isn't getting it, right?
Or health condition or something.
Right, there's something. But I think in 99% of the cases, these are guys that are like, oh yeah, I'm not doing anything. And then they come to a guy like me and they're like, I'm masturbating 3 times a day. I'm hiding it from her. She has no idea. I watch porn all the time. She thinks I don't like sex. Right? And it's like what you said, like where the woman's like, I'm the one initiating it. I deal with this a lot with clients. This is fun. We should do this more often. But I deal with this a lot with clients where the woman's like, I'm the only one initiating it. I'm like, no, you're the only one rejecting him. And she's like, what do you mean? And I'm like, you've rejected him so often, he stopped initiating through fear of rejection. Now he doesn't initiate. And then she's like, well, I don't want to initiate. I was like, well, you should have thought about that before you started rejecting him. Now you've created a scenario where he knows if you initiate, it happens, so he won't. And then the woman's like, oh, what do I do about that? So it's fascinating. In my relationship, I have a rule with my partners, and we agree to it mutually. At any point, you can use my body for sexual gratification. At absolutely any point.
In the middle of your work.
Both ways.
You are presenting here.
If one of,
They show up.
So, true story, I have absolutely been at a seminar, one of my seminars, where my girlfriend has repeatedly grabbed my junk throughout the whole freaking thing, and then has stood by that door, maybe not in this hotel, maybe in this hotel, where the toilet is next door, and she's been like, and I'm like, all right, that's happening, and then that happens. It's absolutely, yeah. But that's part of our relationship, and it's an important part, because there have been times, like, I'll sometimes be so horny at night, I can't sleep. And so my girlfriend would be lying next to me, I'll be on my phone, and I'm like doing this, and she'll be like, oh my God, just hurry up, put her panties down, and we'll just go at it. And I'm like, oh, thank you so much. And I pass out. And that's so much better than being awake all night or trying to sneak off and help myself. But I've had that conversation with every partner I've ever been with. I'm like, hey, this is a thing. And that communication helps. And likewise, there are times where, and this happened in my relationship early on, where my girlfriend would say to me, I feel really bad. I want you right now, but I can tell you're stressed about work. I'm like, oh, that's the best cure. Like, yeah, I'm stressed, absolutely, but you've got the solution right there. Let's go get it. She goes, it's just so hot when you're angry. And I'm like, totally fine. Like, let's just go do it.
I said to my husband, I said, you know, when we take a bath and then when this and then it's the best time to make love for me. And for you? He's like, when I'm horny. Like, there's no question. Why do I need any scenario? When I'm horny?
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely, all the time. Yeah. So this is like one of the things I find absolutely fascinating is that women don't truly appreciate just how often men want it and need it. Because it's something that women don't get. I love this whole the whole man spreading thing. I think it's funny because I'm actually doing it, I suppose, while talking to you. But I think it's really important. Men have a piece of anatomy in between their legs. Sitting with your legs closed is not only uncomfortable, it's painful. And I love it when women are like, men should have to have their legs closed. And it's like, no, actually, it's really uncomfortable. But in the same way, and I know this because I used to be a professional fencer and I teach sword fighting. And the position for a hand for a male and a female is different because it hurts a woman to hold the sword the same way a guy does. So I'm just acutely aware of the difference between body parts. My fencing coach was a woman and she used to deflect blades with her breast, which was not a technique I could do. And so she would absolutely, you'd go to strike her and she'd go pop and push the sword out the way with her breast. Not a skill I could use. If I did it, I got hit. And so you just learn that we function differently.
Yeah.
And part of that is a male's testosterone and it is his sex drive. And I find that the happiest relationships are when a woman knows that and uses it, while at the same time, the man is respecting her. In a situation where a woman says, my man isn't initiating, she needs to realize that's a man that respects her and he doesn't want to get rejected. So he's managing both their expectations.
Yeah, I have a client he is either every day for months or never for months. Mm-hmm. And she's like, I'm lucky now. We are in a yes stage, but I'm exhausted. It exhausts me. I want it to stop. But if he stops, then it will stop forever. What do I do?
And so in those situations, what actually has to happen is they need to talk to each other. Because
she thinks it's related to his work. When he's winning versus when he is losing, his level of sexual interest is completely different.
Yeah, well, and that's because cortisol affects oxytocin. So if he's got high levels of cortisol, that's going to be a factor. But what's fascinating is that she can fix that. So one of the things, again, in my relationship, I'm blessed, my girlfriend will often do, is if I'm stressed, she'll run a bath, turn on the candles, play music, put me to bed, and massage me to sleep, which always turns into sex. But she'll say to me, she's like, hey, we're not gonna have sex. I get that you're stressed and you don't want sex. I'm just gonna massage you to sleep. And then we have sex. Because once she starts touching me and we just had a bath over, and I'm like, okay, wait, no, this is exactly what I want. So, and that's part of that, that level that she can have the control. And I want to make it clear, it's not just one-sided. When she's stressed, then I'll set up the candles and I'll put the bathtub. But I know that that might not be the time that she wants to lead it into sex. Yeah. And instead I will just help her go to sleep. And more often than not, it does turn to sex again. But this is the key. It's about being sex positive and communicative. And I think that in a lot of these situations you're describing, they're not talking and they're not being willing, same thing I was saying before, to play with each other's bodies.
It's still taboo to have we should do it the way we did when we were 20, but you guys are not 20 anymore.
Yeah, and I think women don't appreciate this maybe from men. Men tend to be just as attracted to women as they age. And I think it's women that judge themselves. And I see this, I know this in my own relationship. I met my partners when they were in their young 20s and now they're in their 30s. And they will look at themselves in the mirror and they'll be like, oh my God, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. And I'm just like, just put the fishnets on and come to bed. Like, I just like, all I see is the woman that I love and she's still gorgeous. And I still want her at that exact moment. She's like, I'm 10 pounds more than I used to be. And I'm like, it's just more to hug. Come. And it just, because I want her. And it doesn't matter to me that they're not as young as they used to be. Like, I've still got the pictures. I remember, but what I want is the person I love. And we've transgressed into a different part of our relationship. And I say to them all the time, it's like, what would be worse? What would be worse is if I actually listened to you. And when you tell me that your body sucks, I started believing you.
Agree with you.
And then I didn't want to touch you. And they're like, oh yeah, that would suck. I was like, right, so come here. And that's kind of like the fix. So yeah, but I think in most of these situations, it's communication that will make that difference. Cool, thank you.
Okay, so.